Did you know anything you say at an open for inspection may get used against you later on in negotiations if you look to purchase that property? Welcome back to another Onnit Podcast. My name's Dion. In today's episode, we will be discussing all things about open for inspections and what to look for. Figuring by now, most people that are listening to this episode will have looked at some properties online, potentially done the audit we discussed in the last episode, or some of you have even gone and looked at properties in person. So let's understand this process, what open for inspections are, and where some buyers can go wrong. An open for inspection is a great opportunity for a real estate agent to open a property up to the public. You as buyers get the opportunity to go through those properties. And these are different to private inspections where an agent will specifically tailor a time for one specific buyer to go through. But these really both fall under the same category, and we'll be discussing both of those today. Open for inspections are great to go through as a buyer, and obviously if you're considering purchasing a property, you'd want to see it before purchasing it. It's slightly different to COVID times where we were purchasing properties through a Zoom or a FaceTime. So it's great to get through a property, and often what you'll find as a buyer is you'll see a property online, you'll go inspect it, and it will look nothing like the photos you've seen. And in a later episode, we can discuss how to minimize that happening and how to do a bit of a check on a property before inspecting. But when you go to a property, it's also a great opportunity for an agent to find information out on you as a buyer. So it's important to be careful with what you say, and we can discuss that as well in today's podcast. Something you might not be aware about as a buyer when you go to an open for inspection is the digital footprint you're leaving behind. So when you go to an open for inspection, a real estate agent will ask for your phone number, your full name, your email, sometimes your driver's license. And you might wonder, why do they need my driver's license? Some agents, when you provide your driver's license, will actually be quite clever and try to grab your address, which sits on the front. And they do this to try potentially appraise your home if they sell the property you're inspecting, figuring you could be a neighbor. So just be really mindful about all the information that you give up. Now, I'm definitely not saying lie, and I know some buyers will give false numbers, false names. I think it's important to give your name and number because if you are interested in a property, you do want the agent to call you back, and you don't want to pick up and say, hi, my name is such and such, and they have a different name down. I think it's really important to build good rapport and good trust with the agent. So just be mindful though, what information you give across. When you give across this information, it will actually link you up to a file in their database that they have. And a lot of buyers don't understand how this works. So some big agencies, those key names that you'll see everywhere, tend to have open databases. So if you go through a property in the north of Melbourne and you put in information to that property and you give the agent feedback on your budget, what you're looking for, and then you go look at a property in the eastern suburbs, when you check in under your phone number, that agent that checks you in will also see all the information you've given to the other agent. Even though these could be different offices, different agents, that information is all attached to your database that real estate agent has. I say all this because we all know that buyer that goes to open for inspections and talks a little bit too open about their budget, how much they like a property, and all that information gets stored against them on the database. So even if it's not the property you're going to purchase and you think, that's okay, I don't like this property, that information can still get used against you in 3 months' time at another property. So when you're inspecting the property and the agent asks you questions, it's always important to give information across. It's important to not be rude and build a relationship with the agent, but not give too much information across. And even if it's a property you're not that interested in, just be really mindful what you say. Some buyers will say, we've been approved up to $1 million. That's our budget. And this can hurt you again later on because an agent that's negotiating against you on a property, if you're at $980,000, they know you have a little bit more to spend. So instead of saying your budget is $1 million, that's what you've been approved to, you might say my budget is approximately $950,000. You might reduce the top a little bit just to give yourself a bit more room when it comes to negotiating. So when you're at an open for inspection, what should you look for? I think it's important the first time you go to a house, keep it really simple. Don't overcomplicate it. You can always go back and inspect the property later at another open for inspection, or you can arrange a private inspection, but keep it really simple. Walk through the property, get a bit of a feeling for where furniture might go within the property. Okay, that would go there, or this bedroom would be my study, or this is where the main bedroom would be. Get a bit of a feel and see if you can see yourself being in that property. At an open for inspection, agents will have all the lights on, or most of the time, including lamps. It's to present the property in its best light. As a buyer, you have to see what the property would be like normally. So it's a great chance to turn lights on and off. open curtains and blinds, get a bit of a feel for how the natural light is. Sound is also really important. It's obviously something you can't hear when you're at home looking at the photos of the property online. So if the doors are closed when you enter the property, maybe open them up, open some windows, try listen out to see if you can hear any noise pollution. Talking about agents presenting a property in its best light, another thing they may do is play music. So again, that leads into trying to listen for sound while you're at the property. So you might politely ask the agent, do you mind if I wait back after the open to turn the music off, turn the lights off to get a better feel for what the property is? Some other things to consider might be PowerPoints, how they're lined up in a room. If a property is vacant, this can sometimes be a red flag. Why is the property vacant? We have such a culture now in Melbourne where every property that's vacant is pretty much staged, and this has changed dramatically over the last 10 years. So if a property is vacant, is there a reason why? Because some properties will not present as well if they are staged. If they have dysfunctional floor plans, it will look worse putting furniture in that property. It's better to keep it vacant. So if there's no furniture in certain rooms, or if the property is partially staged or not staged at all, it's really important to try think, where would the bed go? Where would the TV, where would the couch go? Even if a property is staged, sometimes they use things like a print instead of a TV because the TV doesn't quite work where they've put the TV unit or the entertainment unit, and the couch doesn't work there either. But if they put a print there instead of a TV, buyers don't sit there and think, oh, this space wouldn't work because they don't see the TV. So looking at the furniture that is in a property and making sure your furniture can also practically go in that space is really important. Most open for inspections only go for 30 minutes. So don't stress out too much about trying to do everything within that time frame. If you walk through a property and you have a good feel about it, my advice would always be to go back and look at it again. When you go back a second time, you look at things differently, you have time to process things. And it's good to go hop in the car, look at the floor plan as well, and just discuss the property after you go through and inspect it. Another really important thing to take note of while at a property is how many other buyers are there. There is a direct correlation between the amount of bidders and offers that will be on a property and the amount of people that go to an open for inspection. If you go to an open for inspection and there's no one there, that is an indication to you that that property might be overpriced and there's limited interest on it. If you go to a property and you have to queue up out the front and there's 30 other people there, you should know that the marketplace sees great value in that property. And this links back a little bit into what we discussed in the last episode, that what properties are quoted and what properties are worth can be two different things. So using the amount of buyers that go to an open for inspection is a really good indication on how a property is tracking. In a later episode, we will discuss how pricing works in Melbourne's real estate market so you can have a better indication on what properties are worth. But for now, keep it simple. The amount of people at an open is the best indication of what a property is worth. One last tip when inspecting properties, a really common thing that buyers do is when they're driving to an open, they'll put it in their maps. They will drive right to the front of the property, hop out of the car, walk into the house, look at the house, walk out, straight back into their car and drive off because they've got another open straight after they're trying to get to. Something that's really important, and I would highly stress this to every buyer, is park a couple houses down, park a couple minutes away from the property and walk over. You'd be surprised how many more things you take in when walking to a property. You look at all the neighbors. Do they present their houses nicely? Is this a space you want to be? Do you like walking on this street? It's surprising how many buyers will purchase a property and only when they settle realize the neighbors that are actually surrounding their property. So just make sure you park 100, 200 meters away and walk to the property to get a better feel for the location, because at the end of the day, you can change a lot of things about the property inside, but you cannot change the location. In summary, just be careful what you say while you're at an open for inspection. And while you're at the open for inspection, make sure you test things that you can only test while you're there in person, such as the light and the sound. If you have been looking for properties for some time now, I'm sure you've been to a few open for inspections and been disappointed. In the next episode, we'll be discussing how to research properties before physically inspecting them to hopefully save you some time on a Saturday having to inspect properties that will not work for you. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Look forward to catching you in the next one.